Welcome, everyone, for joining us. I'm Brandy Stitt with the Women's Business Center in Kansas City. Today is part of our weekly women's educational series that we started hosting in April of last year as part of our new COVID-related curriculum. And we have morphed that as we, enter our second, is this our second round, of pandemic challenges again? So welcome to everyone. I do have a few housekeeping items to mention before we get started. We will be recording today's session and posting the recording on our Women's Business Center YouTube channel. We have been posting all of our previous recordings, and you're welcome to visit those at any time to see some of our previous sessions that have been hosted. We have covered topics related to understanding your business financials, social media, HR related issues, WBE and MBE certification, some very specific COVID related type topics. So certainly feel free to visit our YouTube channel at any time to see those previous sessions, and then we will have today's session posted within the next couple of days there as well. And I would encourage you to revisit it on YouTube, and also to feel free to share the link to any of your friends, family, and other women entrepreneurs that you think could really benefit from today's session. So today we are going to focus on how to get honest feedback from your clients to grow your business. We have two great presenters, Diana Kander and Jesse Jacob with JD Insights, joining us to present today. And I'm going to hand it over to them in just a moment. But first, I do want to mention that if you have questions or comments, please do utilize the chat feature or Q&A. We'll be monitoring both. So certainly feel free to post any questions or comments that you have. One thing that's also really helpful for us is if you want to use the chat to introduce yourself and your company and where you're located from. One thing we learned through these sessions is that we have a much broader reach than just the Kansas City market. And so we always love to see where we have people coming from. We've over the last 15 months, we've had participants from over 30 states in the United States and 17 different countries. So it's been really fun to see where everyone's joining us from. So please do use the chat to introduce yourself. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Jesse and Diana to go ahead and give you a more robust introduction of themselves and to get you teed up for this session. All right. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brandy. All right. So welcome to how to get honest feedback from your clients to grow your business. Diana and I run a customer insights company called JD Insights, where we help organizations discover their areas of improvement to innovate and grow their organizations. So we do that through customer interviews. So today we're just going to kind of start off warming up in the chat, just like Brandy was saying. Let's see, can you all see? No, not that one. Can you see my presentation? No.
I can see it.
Oh, you can? Okay, great. All right. Oh, Zoom. You'd think we'd figure this out after doing this for however long, a year and a half now. Awesome. All right, our first chat box warm-up question is, what's something you're looking forward to? Just something, it could be personal, it could be professional. What's just something you have to look forward to? Diana, will you read these off for me? I can't see the chat, so please.
Yes, but let's do the next one as well, Jesse.
Cool. Next warm-up question, what kind of business are you in? So kind of what Brandy was saying, please introduce yourself. What do you do? What's your industry? Are you B2B, B2C? We'd love to kind of get a feel for what you all are doing and what you all are working on, so we can kind of use that as we're going throughout today's presentation.
Awesome. We have Abby from Boston with a logistics company, and Tracy, who's about to go to Chicago for a 36-hour trip. That's exciting.
Hi.
We have a viewer from Egypt who's a freelance translator.
Amazing.
Super cool.
That's incredible. Fantastic. All right. So today, obviously, we're going to be talking about how to get honest feedback from your clients to grow your business. Here's what we're going to cover during the session: why feedback is your most powerful asset, why you need to talk to your customers instead of just surveying them, and how to get customers to actually be honest with you. So we're going to cover these 3 elements throughout our time together. But one more question for our chat box is, why do you think customer feedback is imperative?
While people are typing, Tracy is here. She's a financial planner in Kansas City. It's so funny. We have people from all over today.
Super cool.
Yes. Why do you think customer feedback is important? Because we're going to tell you why we think.
Improve the service. Yes, definitely.
Anybody else? All right, Jesse, let's not hold them in suspense.
All right. So why feedback? Oh, go ahead.
Abby says it helps evaluate the overall business objectives and if you're doing what you want to be doing and what the customer experience is.
Definitely improves the customer experience. Okay, fantastic. So why we think feedback's your most powerful asset. So with customer feedback, you can retain a higher percentage of your customers. You can turn your existing customers into raving fans that give you referrals. And you can also win back past customers or prospects that maybe didn't convert in your sales cycle. Fantastic. So we all have blind spots and areas to improve, and the companies that continue to listen to customers and address their needs are going to keep winning. And so we love this quote from Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. We're just eating it out of a bowl for breakfast. It's like it's the Wheaties commercial here. Who else is winning is Domino's Pizza, and I'll hand it off to Diana to kind of go on a Domino's Pizza riff about why they're winning.
Well, we just wanted to give you an example of a company that does this really, really well. And, in 2010, a lot of us remember Domino's Pizza had those advertisements where they admitted their pizza tasted terrible. And after years of denying it, they were finally faced with customer feedback that they couldn't deny. And that is, they came in a national poll as the worst tasting pizza in the United States, tied dead last with Chuck E. Cheese pizza. And so they knew they had to do something. And since 2010, Domino's Pizza has been listening to customers. Their stock has gone from $3.50 a share to currently at $500 a share. And the biggest thing is that they don't sell anything other than pizza. So as you're growing your business, you can either choose to invest in innovation and like doing R&D and inventing stuff, or you can invest in being the cheapest option available to your customers, or you can go down this route, which we're recommending, which is getting to know your customers so well that you can continuously offer ways to serve them in new ways that they feel in their heart but might not be able to express. So these are all the different things that Domino's has created for their customers. They've created, it seems so commonplace now, but they were the first to create the pizza tracker, which we now, wait on our Amazon goods. Everybody's tracking everything, but Domino's was the first one to do it. In the bottom left, they were the first ones to create the open pizza concept because their customers were like, I'm not sure what you're doing back there. And I've seen these videos on YouTube that make me uncomfortable. And so every one of these inventions, to being able to order Domino's Pizza through text messaging and on your phone, to a car that has an oven inside of it to keep your pizzas at utmost warmth, to the Domino's hotspot that allows you to order your pizza in the middle of the woods where I am. And they will bring it to literally anywhere. You don't need an address because they're so in tune with their customers. And the way that they can keep creating these amazing products is because they've created this system that we'll explain today of how to listen to your customers, and continuously invent on their behalf, and not just be coming up with new products and services, but doing things that solve problems for your customers.
I love it. Diana, will you explain the paving for pizza thing? Because that's
Yeah, I mean, they solve their customers'
hilarious.
problems in all kinds of ways. And one fun campaign that they did was, a pothole can stop a pizza from getting to your location. So they actually went around and paved roads all over the United States. Small towns could apply for them to come, and they would put like the Domino's logo to fill the pothole because they didn't want anything to get in the way between a customer and their pizza.
Oh, it's so funny. It cracks me up. But it's so genius. It's marketing gold. Okay, so obviously Domino's Pizza is winning. They're talking to their customers. They created a systematic approach to getting this feedback and creating feedback loops. But there are different customers for you to think about interviewing for feedback. So that could be active prospects that didn't convert from your sales cycle or sales funnel, current customers, whether they're engaged or disengaged, and past customers. So really thinking about the entire customer life cycle, the entire customer journey. And there are areas to improve in each stage of that customer journey. And so there's things that we can learn from each of these customers when we're interviewing them. So just for a few examples, if you were to talk to active prospects, really getting an idea of what are their real pain points, what's confusing or frustrating about, what do they find confusing or frustrating about your business? Maybe you're interviewing prospects that don't convert. Why did they choose not to go with you? Who did they choose to go with instead? If you're talking to current customers, it could be what's holding them back from being more engaged. And we'll talk more about this in a little bit with a really amazing story of how JD Insights was even started. But what do they wish you'd fix or improve? And maybe their general perceptions of you, of the company. And then lastly, your past customers. So what's the real reason that they left outside of timeline and budget? What's the real reason that they left? And
before you go to the next slide, Jesse,
yeah.
I just want to add, with each one of these sections, we kind of tell stories to ourselves about what happened, like why somebody didn't convert. We have a way to say to ourselves, oh, they probably couldn't afford it, or it wasn't the right fit. And the one thing that we found in our company is there are a lot of surprising pieces of feedback out there that you never would have guessed, and that could really help you grow your business. And if you leave here with one message, it's that these stories that you tell yourself about what's going on in each one of these 4 groups of customers might not always be accurate.
Fantastic. All right, so we're going to transition into kind of phase 2 here. Why you need to talk to your customers instead of surveying them. Of course, our natural inclination is like, we need feedback. We send out a survey. Of course, that's like the natural thought process, but we want you to question that. So something we have that we're curious about in the chat, what percentage of feedback surveys do you think you actually fill out? I'm just so curious to hear what people might have to say.
Just give us a percentage in the chat of all the surveys that you receive over your email. What % of them do you actually fill out?
25%?
We have a 25% from Tracy. Jesse, what's your percent?
Well, now that I work in this industry, I probably fill it out more, but I used to never fill them out. I was like, that's so silly.
I would say now that I work in this industry, still 0%. Abby loves to fill out surveys. That's amazing. Abby says 75%. She just wants to know the questions.
Ooh,
I love it.
Maybe she does something similar in a similar
Even also loves surveys. Abby says only to learn.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. All right. So a quick background on, why did we start JD Insights? I think, we had a B2B SaaS platform in Kansas City reach out to us and they said, our customers aren't as active or as engaged as we want them to be, and we don't know why. There's like this mysterious reason. We have some guesses that they won't fill out our feedback survey. So can you all call our customers for us And we're like, this is a really interesting problem that you all have. So after calling a total of 600 of their customers and completing over 100 phone call interviews with these customers, here are some of the things we discovered. So their clients, we discovered the real reason why they left or they aren't as active or as engaged. The competitor that they're using now instead of our client, the product features that they wished our client had that their competition has, their likelihood of returning back to using this company's platform, what the company can offer to win them back and bring them back, and just their overall perception that these customers have of the company and their customer service function. Like, this was mind blowing to Diana and I. Like, wow, of course they're not going to fill a lot of this out on a survey. And we were able to really drive a lot of the things, their win back plan, their marketing plan, all through the insights we were able to discover for them.
Yeah, just to be clear, we didn't even have a company. I mean, the person at the company called and they're like, Jesse and Diana, you seem to like customer insights and talking to people. Can you just help us out with this small project? And at the end of the project, the insights were so amazing. We were like, maybe other people would want that.
It's been mind blowing. And even just like the perception piece here, like a quick story is like, after completing these interviews, 25% of the interviewees said that they thought the customer service was subpar. And they were like, wow, we never would have discovered that. We've only been talking to our customers that love us. We have an advisory board of them. But of course, we never thought that our customer service was lacking because we've never really asked them that. So our point here is that you can't get all this information on a survey. It's really important to talk to your customers directly. And so here's why why talk to your customers instead of surveying them directly? So just as easy, you all are an anomaly answering 75% or 90% of surveys is pretty mind blowing. But most people are probably only answering about 25% or less of the surveys that they actually receive. So as easy as it is to send a survey, it's just as easy to ignore a survey. I love this. We have a funny example of like asking a customer, like, hey, do you have just 10 minutes for a quick call? And they're like, ugh. And then I'm like, well, how about just 3 to 5 minutes? And they're just like, okay, fine. But they would have never have filled out a survey. But the fact that we called them got them to share their insights with us. Another reason why it's important to call them instead of survey them is that you can't sense the hesitation in their voice on a survey. You can't ask those follow-up questions of like, why did you hesitate? Tell me more about that. What did you mean by this? You can actually ask for clarification on that feedback. It's hard to communicate how much you care on a survey as well. When you're talking to them directly, you're showing how invested you are in understanding their feedback to grow your organization. People will fill out surveys or leave reviews because they're either really happy or they're really upset. And those are the extremes. But what's important is that organizations need to talk to the people that are in the middle. So a broader group of those people and past customers is important, rather than, for example, that customer advisory board of people that are your power users. They love you. Don't just talk to those people. We want to talk to a wide range of our customers. And then you never get a survey and think, wow, I should go back to work with that company. You've just like already kind of written them off and you're like, I'm done with them. And I love through the work that Diana and I are doing with JD Insights is that we've had a couple of customers that we've called on and said, hey, you know what? The fact that you have called means that this organization is growing and that they know that they have areas to improve and that they want to actually make this better for me. So I'm actually going to go back and get back on that platform and see if there's something that may be a fit for me. And so that's incredible. Like, that would never happen on a survey. And the point is that some of these customers are actually win backable and they're still looking for solutions.
And I would just say, like, we did the survey here of how many of you love to answer surveys. And that seems like a really simple question. And yet your responses were so complicated to it, right? So like, I answer 75% of surveys because I'm curious about the questions, not because I'm answering honestly or I care about the company. And that's the problem with the survey. There's like so much thinking that's going on behind the scenes that you never get access to.
So yeah, your customers have things that they want to share with you, but they don't want to hurt your feelings, and they aren't going to share really small nuanced things on a survey. So for instance, the real reason a customer chose to leave. So we've seen I think there are lots of reasons that people choose to leave. It's not just budget or timeline. Those are just like the generically easy things to give to you because you're like, I just want to find an easy answer so I can get out of this as fast as possible. But we've found some really incredible things through our customer interviews. One of them, for instance, said, the proposal came to me and nothing was tailored about my company. And they actually spelled my name wrong on the proposal. And that kind of like put a sour taste in my mouth. And I'm actually like decided not to go with them. So it was like fascinating that one of the decision-making factors was what they didn't feel like their proposal was being personalized. Another interesting story is that we talked to a prospect who chose not to go with a company, and we were like, was there anything confusing or frustrating about the process of working with this organization? And they said, yeah, everything was great via email. And then we got to the meeting and we noticed that they weren't really dressed professionally, and they were actually wearing active wear rather than business professional wear. And so we decided to go with their local competitor because they kind of are a more professional services organization. And that was mind blowing. They would never have filled that out on a survey of why they chose not to go with this organization. Diana, anything else to add on here? I know you have a great story about law firms too, about like the decision making for law firms.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't give them a clear reason, then they'll go to debating you on price point. And one of the things about talking to your customers and getting honest feedback is it can give you those little points of differentiation that you might be able to use with future customers. And those are the kinds of insights that can really help a company skyrocket their growth.
Fantastic. And one other story I guess I will add in here is that I was chatting with a customer, and they said, hey, the reason I chose not to go with them is because this price is just crazy high. And I was like, tell me what you think the price is. And they're like, this thing is $10,000 per employee. And and I was like, okay, well, tell me more about what you think the offering is. And they actually, the price point I know what the actual price point was, which is it's $10,000 per 10 employees. But this customer had thought that it was way more expensive than it actually was. And so there was something not connecting in that, the sales process or the marketing process, which made it confusing or frustrating for this company, which made them choose to go in a different direction. So,
and that's something that happens all the time. Like, you think you've properly communicated your offering, your messaging, but if you don't stop and ask prospects like what you just said back to them, you won't hear like how they're hearing it. And we hear that a lot, like the difference between what the company thought they said and what prospects who didn't convert thought that they heard.
So the gist is that customers aren't always going to tell you the truth on your survey, and they may be more likely to tell you when you're talking to them directly. And first, you have to acknowledge that you want to have these insights, you want to have this feedback. As we're kind of sharing this with our clients, like, hey, you didn't wear the right thing to this meeting, and they went with a competitor. That feedback is going to sting. Like, it doesn't feel good. And so the gist is that you kind of have to go approach these interviews, these feedback interviews, with a sense of like, the best kind of feedback is the kind that stings, and it's going to pack a punch. And so you kind of have to be ready for that. So this part 3 is how to get customers to be honest with you. So Diana, did you want to ask a question in here, or I'm sorry?
No, I just want to make sure we're answering any questions that you might have over parts 1 about why you need feedback in general and how often you should be getting feedback, and also why surveying people, even though it's easy for you, isn't the best way to get the kinds of answers that you really want in order to be able to grow your company.
So maybe here in the chat, how do you think you can get on customers to be honest with you. So we have a whole list of rules and a whole set of guidelines that we use actually at JD Insights that we train our employees with. But I'm curious in the chat if anyone would be open to sharing, how do you think you can get honest feedback from customers when you're interviewing them?
Why don't we share some of ours, Jesse, while folks are typing, and I'll interrupt. Oh, Tracy says meet with them face to face outside of the office in a quiet place.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, the value of just like that one-on-one time that's definitely on our list, Tracy. With food or drink, of course.
Yes. Always better.
Fantastic. Okay, so here are just around a kitchen table. There's something about being in the kitchen. It's very disarming. It's comforting there. So here's
a long list. You guys don't have to memorize this. You don't have to write this down. We'll be happy to share this with you afterwards. Before we get to that, Abby says, how do you overcome management's desire for scale the quantity of surveys from customers? I think that's a great question. How do we think about the volume of surveys, Jesse, whether it's enough for scale?
Yeah, so I think there's this natural inclination of like, well, we need to send this survey out to 5,000 people and then 1,000 people need to fill it out. But for what I've noticed when we're doing these interviews, one of our clients may say, this is how many interviews we have to have. And even before we get to that number, there are some pretty clear themes or overarching patterns throughout the insights that are enough statistical significance to feel confident about, okay, this seems like we should double down on this thing or continue to ask about this thing throughout our customer interviews so that we know whether this is an area to improve or not. Diana, what would you add on to that?
You can send out the 5,000 person survey. Like, a lot of companies have an NPS score of how many people would recommend. And that's like, it's a good way to get a large feeling of what's happening. But I will tell you, like most companies that I know either have, they usually have an NPS score that hasn't moved in 5 to 10 years, or it moves a little bit. And that's not really helping you uncover opportunities for growth. And also, if you have like a specific question that you're trying to answer, like, I wonder why some customers are leaving. I wonder why we're not converting a higher percentage of people. Maybe there's certain groups of prospects we're not converting as well. These are the kinds of questions that these kind of over the phone or in-person interviews can help you answer. But, oftentimes you want the volume. We definitely have seen the companies who want the volume, but what is it that you're getting with that volume of responses? And what can you do with that information?
Abby, how was that for you? Would you mind throwing that in the chat? Just like any other follow-up questions? Awesome.
Fantastic. And I wouldn't just say like, we hate surveys. You could do the survey, but I think the survey, if you're doing it right, will only lead to more questions. And I don't know, you're not often going to get, like, the comments that you'll get at the end of a survey will be kind of all over the board because people have a blank space to enter other information. And we really want to make sure there's like a consistent theme from our customers in order to be able to invest resources behind something.
Awesome. So there's a lot of rules here, and we have our own way of kind of training people on our team who are making these customer interview phone calls. But the first thing that's most important is just convincing yourself you're ready to hear the truth. I know we talked about this earlier, but the truth really can be hurtful and it can sting a little bit. So reflecting on, are we ready to actually hear this feedback? Some organizations, it is a little bit easier to be in denial about the fact that the reason why you aren't closing as many sales, like I know of an organization that is struggling to have more sales, and it's an early stage startup, and they haven't even admitted to themselves that they don't even have a real product yet. And so they are really frustrated with how this is going. And so really being really understanding that the truth is going to be painful. So understanding what kind of feedback you're trying to learn before beginning the interviews. This is one of our favorites here. Diana, I would love to hear you go on a riff about this, but people's natural inclination is to lie to you. Please, Diana, give us a little bit of a spiel on here.
Yeah, I mean, people are nice. You are all nice people on this webinar, and you all lie to others just to be nice to them or to get out of a conversation. Like when somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I've quit my job, I've invested my entire life savings, my kids' college funds into this startup idea. What do you think about it? There's only one right answer to that. And you're not going to be like, this is the worst idea I've ever heard of. This is never going to work. No, you're going to say, I love it. Good luck. Best of luck. And so people are trying to be super nice. And so what they're trying to do is figure out what kind of answer you're looking for, and then they want to give it to you. And your job is to convince them that what you want is the truth, and that only the truth will help you grow and improve.
And tying on to that, distancing yourself from what you're trying to get feedback on, if possible. So really trying to say, well, I'm not the one on the product team, for instance, or I'm not on the sales team. Just being able to kind of set separation so that they really do know that you want the truth, and that your feelings aren't going to be involved when they give you the truth.
Jesse, somebody asked about how what we do works in a virtual world. I will say, like, we never meet with anybody face to face.
No, well, not anymore. We could have in the future. We could have.
No, but that takes a lot of time just for us, like with the volume that we're trying to do. So what do you like better, Zoom or phone calls?
Phone calls are absolutely better. I think on Zoom calls, you have to look someone in the face. And being able to just have a phone call, cold call conversation is incredibly powerful. That kind of separates, again, kind of creates a little bit of distance between you and the person that they're giving feedback to. And they don't need to see your emotional reaction and your facial expressions and things like that. Through that first project that we were all telling you about, the story of JD Insights, we ended up conducting over 100 phone call interviews, and I only got hung up on twice, and they were all phone calls, and they ranged anywhere from 5 minutes to 25 or 30 minutes. It's remarkable how many people were actually willing to take the time to talk to me once you give them the space to really reflect and to just kind of vent. It's pretty mind-blowing.
This is actually really surprising to me. I would have thought Zoom would be better because you could see them, but it takes so much longer to schedule a Zoom. We found that cold calling people works much better. We can get them on the phone right away, and you can do a much higher volume of people. And also, you can just cold call somebody over and over again all the time until they pick up, and you can't keep sending them Zoom invites or emails. It works much faster. And as Jesse said, it allows them to be a lot more honest because they're not looking right at you. So they don't feel that pressure to be nice.
And there's something about kind of catching someone in the middle, like, of their transition. I know I shared this example earlier, but like, hey, do you have just like, when you're sending an email, you have to like schedule the time, and it can feel kind of cumbersome, and it adds friction to them giving you the feedback. When you make the phone call, you just ask, hey, do you have 10, 15 minutes? Even if they hesitate for that, do you have 3 to 5 minutes? And then there's kind of this like begrudging, like, okay, fine. And then it's amazing how that quote unquote 3 to 5 minute conversation can turn into a 15-minute call of just like some really valuable insights.
And the last thing I'll say is, like, on a Zoom, you have to start with like, so how's your week? What are you doing for the holidays? You don't have to do any of that when you cold call somebody. They're like, come on, get this over with. Like, let's get to the questions. And so totally. You could just do a much higher volume of calls in the same period of time.
I hope that answered your question. Great. So, and then we kind of started talking about this already, but get them to be as present as possible. You want to be respectful of their time, but also people are doing a million different things. Be conversational and less business professional. I love this one. It's just a sense of like, it's almost just like a coffee talk. I know Tracy was saying like, take them out or sit at the kitchen table and have food and drink. Like that's kind of how it should feel on the phone with them or when you're just chatting with them. It should kind of just be this, I know Diana likes to call it like pro tip, act like this is your first date. So like really make it feel natural and casual.
I mean, definitely don't argue with them, right? Like when they tell you something about your company, don't tell them that they got it wrong or that they misunderstood. Just be like, wow, like that's really valuable information. Tell me more. I want more information on that.
So obviously do more listening than talking. So your job is, and the talking that you do, make sure it's mostly filled with asking questions. And then we have some rules around like the best way to ask effective questions. So don't use would you in a question. Make sure you're asking like open-ended questions that aren't leading to whatever you're trying to get at. Asking questions about present day or past behavior. Diana, would you mind elaborating on that a little bit in terms of?
Like people have no idea what they would do in the future. They're just making it up. Like, would you pay $100 for this thing? And they'll be like, sure. They might think they will do that, but they definitely have no idea, even in themselves, whether they would do something in the moment. It's a different person that's acting like in the heat of the moment. And so again, the easiest way to get out of a conversation is to be like, yes, I would pay this much. We've seen lots and lots of products where people told them they would pay a certain amount and then nobody would buy it or pay that amount afterwards. So people don't know what they're going to do in the future, but they definitely know what happened to them in the past and what frustrated them or how they explained what happened to them to others. And so we focus all of our questions on what's happening now and what happened in the past.
And then obviously we all have burning questions about each of these customers or these customer segments and things that we like, oh, we really want to know. Like for instance, that one company was like, why did they leave? Like, why aren't they active or as engaged as they want them to be, or examples. And a bad question would be asking, why, just blatantly asking like, so why did you leave? Or why aren't you as active or as engaged? And really the premise of just try asking better questions that can lead you to the same answer. So Dana, do you have an example of this?
Yeah, like instead of why did you leave, like tell me about what you're doing now. Tell me about what you're getting that you weren't getting before. Tell me how, like when you were frustrated, who did you talk to about it and what did you say to them about it? What other options did you look at to solve this problem? So not like why didn't you say something, but like what did you try? How did you express your frustration? So these are all very different ways to ask the exact same question.
Fantastic. And then we talk about just only interviewing one person at a time. Yes, there's a time and a place for having a focus group and things like that, but really just focusing in on that one person, having a one-to-one interaction. I know Tracy kind of mentioned this earlier, but that's exactly what it is. It's just like making sure that it also helps with them being fully present. They're not going to be swayed by other people in the group. I always think about like group interviews with if you were interviewing an employee, for instance, a future candidate, your answers may be swayed if you hear how other people are reflecting on that person. And so it's great to evaluate the candidate on an individual basis and then take that feedback and put it together rather than us sharing our feedback together in a group. Write down or record your interviews, really making sure that you're either transcribing them in a way that works for you. Abby, we have a question here, technical question about questions. I love it. Advice on recording the call. Diana, do you want to elaborate on this, or do you want me?
Yeah, we type them. We type out responses so that we have it somewhere, but it doesn't take very many for us to forget who said what. Because you're asking a number of different questions of different people. So we just type out the answers, and sometimes in an Excel spreadsheet where you have a column for each question and you have each person, or sometimes in a Word document, and then you'll put it into an Excel spreadsheet. Jesse?
Yeah, and I think again, recording the call it's now common courtesy to be like, hey, we're recording this call. It's kind of shady to just like record the call, especially on Zoom. I mean, for instance, like now they have that Zoom notification that's like, this meeting is being recorded. I feel like you also have to give that disclaimer to the person that you're interviewing as well, if you're going to go that route. So, and then I think then it just what matters most is just like really transcribing and taking good notes throughout the interview.
Yeah, so we don't do that. We don't do we don't record their audio. We take really good notes.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat about positive and negative feedback for websites. I would just say like none of our stuff we use to publish. To put like as marketing materials. I'm sure there's a debate about whether to share positive and negative reviews. Everything we're talking about is like stuff that the business can take to talk about how they can improve their service offering and their customer experience.
Did that answer your question, Skylight? And then I would say two last interviews or two last questions or rules on here is just the importance of restating their advice or their feedback back to them so that they can feel heard and understood. You can ask for clarity. Is this what you actually meant when you said this? Is there anything you'd like to add? So it really kind of adds another additional layer of rich, unique insights, again, that you wouldn't get on a survey, to be able to ask for follow-up and clarification. And then the last rule is just thanking them. So it's amazing how valued your customer can feel when they actually believe that they're a part of your growth of the company. So there are so many individuals that I've talked to that have been like, wow, I really admire this organization that they're growing. And I know that they're an early stage startup, and I'm glad that I'm a part of this journey of helping them to grow and improve. And that's a really cool feeling for your customers to have, to feel like they're a part of building your company, even though they don't work for you. So I just think that's a wonderful thing. Looks like we had a follow-up question in the chat, Diana.
I think it's pretty similar to the previous question, Jesse.
Okay. Awesome. Any other questions about these interview rules? I'll wait just to pause just a moment here. Okay. So curious about your own reflections. So we'd love to just take a few moments, and you can either actually write down or you could just kind of take a moment to reflect, but can you name 10 customers that you would like to check in with? And what are your burning questions that you have about those customers? And what do you really wish you knew about them that you think could really make your company better? So we'll take a pause here for just a few moments, and then we really want to hear your reflections after you have a moment to reflect. Diana, anything else from you as we're kind of waiting on people?
No, this is great.
Okay, awesome. And I guess as you all are reflecting, it's amazing how these interview rules can seem cumbersome and overwhelming, but really once you get into the gist of the flow of doing them, and after you gain a little confidence of doing them, it's seriously amazing what you can get done in an hour's worth of time, and even just like a 5-minute phone call with a customer. It's pretty mind-blowing. So it really doesn't take much time to get some really valuable insights to grow your organization.
And I know if any of you would like the opportunity to speak, please raise your hand if you want to.
Ooh.
Easier to do chat as opposed to doing chat. If you actually want to talk and share your thoughts and questions, just raise your hand and I can allow you to speak to Jesse and Diana.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandy. All right, what do you think, Diana? Move to our reflection question.
Sure. We have a question as a freelancer. I need to know the feedback from all of my clients. How are they satisfied with the end result? Yes. I think that's an important, you need satisfied customers in order to be able to grow your business. But I will tell you, the research shows that satisfied customers aren't going to be referral sources for your business, that there's one step above satisfied that is like extremely happy. And so we would just share that if you're getting satisfied customers, there are still opportunities to improve the service offering to get them to the kind of super excited customers that are telling everyone they know about your service. And that's what these kinds of interviews can help you get to, for sure. And then Abby says, can you talk ever so briefly about what an insight is versus just data and input? I think this is a conversation that Jesse and I have all the time, where we have transcriptions from 50, 60 conversations. And then when we're thinking about, okay, what are the 3 insights that we want to take away from this set of interviews? It's like, what are the big 3 ideas that the business could really use to make maybe sometimes small tweaks in their business, but that would allow them to grow as a company, right? So sometimes, like just from previous customers, it can be this like, hey, customer service is a problem, or hey, people are like, I'll give you one insight. You're selling a product that it needs a lot of approvals inside of a company, and you're explaining it over the phone, and then they're basically playing a game of telephone, explaining it to other people inside the company, and they're doing a terrible job. Like by the time it gets to the last person, they have no idea what the price is, what you do, why you would do it. And so can we create some marketing materials that you could send to those people, like a PowerPoint or something that they could share with the conversation? And so that is a powerful insight that would make it much easier to close a lot more prospects. So that's how we discuss it. What are the big 3 things that we took away from these conversations?
And to add on to that, a data point, for example, that we wouldn't consider a unique, like a huge insight when we found all these other things, would be, here are the competitors that your customers went to, and here's how many of the customers went to each of the different competitors. That would be like a data point rather than an insight for the organization.
Unless they're all going to one competitor.
Yeah, that's true.
Then it's like, hey, this is an insight. This is something like we need to ask a lot more follow-up questions about this competitor and what it is that they're doing. So if there's something like really profound in the numbers, but sometimes it takes a discussion with another person, like, is this an insight? I don't know. We have a bell that we ring every time we find an insight.
And we do have a hand raised, so
Great.
I'm going to allow them to talk. Okay, so if you unmute yourself, you should be able to, there you go.
Hi, this is Patty, and I have a question about we have a website, and how many questions, or for example, like if the customer want to give the feedback on our website, so like the name, email address, and the feedback and the stars, these such kind of question or options are enough for any client, or we have to add some more options in it. So what is the best way we can ask from our client, or what kind of question we can add on our website? So can you guide us, like which are question are important, or we have to ask or mention. It's not annoying for any customer or client. Any customer easily can give the feedback and easily put the feedback there
Yeah,
without any.
I would just say, if you could ask when they're filling out the form to say, like, if please include your phone number, and if there are any feedback questions that you're curious about or you want to know more about, or they gave you 4 stars, like 4 stars is a satisfied customer, but it's not like a 5-star customer, obviously. So then you could call them and say, tell me about your experience. You know, what gave it 4 stars instead of 5? How did you explain it to others? What was the missing component? Things like that. But again, like, our big thing is calling people on the phone.
I guess my follow-up, yeah, I was going to say my follow-up question for you, Patty, is like, what is the feedback that you're really wanting to get from them?
Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I know that you want to add questions to your website to get feedback from your customers. But what is the feedback that you're really seeking? Like, what is the question that you have, the burning question you have about your customer that you're hoping that
Actually, I have discussed with my owner of the company regarding, because we have feedback page, and when I saw the one of the option is title of the feedback, something like, so because we are using Shopify platform, so I have a question about, because this is not the feedback, this is the basically like, if you want to generate the ticket or something offline messages, then we can use the title of and title of the feedback. So we can, as she said, like we can put the stars, probably a 4 to 5. It's all depend on the customer, like mention the name or the company name, but it's not necessary. Or it's necessary. What do you think about it? Because if the company name or name, it will be mentioned there. So who is giving the feedback, we can show on our website, and it will be good for that any website. And secondly, it's mentioned the email address there. So is it necessary to put there, or it's annoying for any client or customer can easily give their own personal email or company email address there? And secondly, about the title of the feedback, is it good option there on the feedback or not? This is actually my question regarding to my own website.
Well, this is a very specific question, so we will provide our contact information at the end, so you can email us and we'd be happy to chat with you about it, and would love to answer general questions about interviews for feedback.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Abby's hopping off to prepare for a 9 a.m. phone call with a loyal customer.
Woo-hoo.
I love it. I'm sure lots of people need to hop off for their next thing. So, Jesse?
Yeah, our last warm-up, our last chat box question here is just, what are some burning questions you have about your customers? And then we're curious about your biggest lesson learned or your aha moment from today. Love to kind of see what you have here in the chat.
While they're entering it, can you share the last slide and what we have for them? I might, there might be a torrential downpour right here. So.
Of course. So as you're kind of sharing your biggest takeaway, your aha moment, and your burning questions for your customers in the chat, we have a free resource guide available that we actually train our internal employees on how to make these customer feedback calls. So it's basically those rules that we mentioned, but just like those rules on steroids with lots of extra directions on how to conduct great customer interviews. So if you would like one of these, please email me at Jesse@JD Insights down here in the bottom right, and we'd be happy to send you this little guide so you all can have great interviews with your customers.
All right. Are there any other questions for Jesse or Diana before we wrap things up? So I did share again in the chat box the link to the Women's Business Center's YouTube channel, where we will be posting the recording of today's session. And you're welcome to revisit that or share it with others. Jesse's email is listed here as well. If you have specific questions that you'd like to address with Jesse or Diana, you can certainly reach out to them. Thank you, Jesse and Diana, for this presentation. This was really helpful information, even for, especially for us as we're looking for feedback from our clients. So I really appreciated this, and I'm sure the rest of our participants did as well. So thank you all for joining us, and thanks again to our presenters. And I hope you all have a great day.